How's it going, Fireside Yankee fans? Welcome back with your boys Alex and Sam. Today we're discussing Michael King, some really good updates regarding his progression timetable for return. And of course, we all know Michael King's a stud. He's a monster. He's a beast. He was absolutely electric during the first half of that 2022 season before the elbow injury. And the injury is actually kind of interesting. If you're not aware of this, Brendan Cuddy did a great article for The Athletic. So congratulations to him for joining The Athletic to be their reporter over there with Chris Kirschner. But you look at what he wrote about and what Michael King told him, and the interesting nature of that injury. It was not a Tommy John UCL injury. It actually was a fractured elbow. And they say that type of injury doesn't happen very often in people that are beyond their teenage years. It's a very rare injury. A couple guys have had it. I think Ozzie Albies had it way back in 2016 or something like that, and a couple of others. Another player had it after getting hit by a pitch on his elbow, but that was more so because he got hit by a pitch, not because he was overthrowing his arm. And interestingly, he actually told Clay Holmes about the injury, that he was feeling a little bit something in his elbow, and he wasn't necessarily sure what it was. And Clay Holmes was wanted to tell the trainers, but out of respect for King, because King wanted to pitch through it, he didn't say anything. And in that game, the second when Michael King told him about it, that was the game that he got injured, and Clay Holmes was devastated, and he was like, God, I wish I told him about it, and unfortunately a little bit too late. But end of the day, Michael King, he'll be back to 100%. It's not Tommy John surgery, so once that elbow heals, he should be good to go, and we should see the full force of him. And the timetable for return is definitely optimistic, and people are kind of targeting that opening day in March for his return and easing him into the season. But Sam, before we discuss Michael King, his impact, and really how great of news this is, how you do today, my friend?
I'm good, man. Most interesting thing about that was I was at that game, and it was probably the scariest thing ever because it was in Baltimore. I was in the second deck and watched him throw out his elbow. And at that point in time, it was the scariest thing ever because, right then, he was probably our most important bullpen arm. Clay Holmes was obviously on that crazy tear first half of the year. But Michael King led, I think, all relievers. I don't know if it's just American League relievers, all relievers in WAR at that point. It was 1.7, and that's where he ended. And after he got hurt, he was still at the top of that leaderboard for about a month and a half after that, which is absolutely insane. And it's interesting when I look at his projection for the next season, he's only projected, I think it's 0.4 WAR next year, and he's expected to be due for a crazy regression. And that's obviously coming off an injury, and we're going to see what we get. But, it's really interesting to see that, he wanted to stay in, and he wanted to throw, and he told Clay Holmes about that. I did not know. But, I think at this point, this gives us just another piece to this unit that, is going to be one of the most elite bullpens in the MLB. And at that point, without Michael King, this was still a great unit. And now if you add Michael King back into the fold, who, like I said, was probably one of our best relievers last season, I just think it makes this team even better. And I'm just so glad that he's, going to be able to be healthy and be able to be a full-time contributor for this team moving forward. And I'm excited for this guy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, Michael King is one of those players that you can rely on heavily. 27 years old, really took a big step forward with this team in 2022. Finished the season with tremendous numbers. You're looking at a guy who had a 2.29 ERA, 2.42 xFIP over 51 innings. The fact that he pitched 51 innings and still missed what felt like a majority of the season is quite remarkable. They used him heavily. He was on pace for 75-plus innings. They're going to have to dial that down. He's probably going to have to hover in the 50 to 60 range for an entire year this upcoming season as he kind of fights that injury back. But his strikeouts went up significantly. Went from 8.81 strikeouts per nine to 11.65. His walks decreased, and his home runs per nine, 0.53, went down from 0.85. 9.1% home run to fly ball ratio, and 77% left on base rate, 47% ground ball rate, both career high numbers. So you're looking at a guy who really took his game to another level. And you look at his individual pitches, he's got some of the best stuff on the entire roster. Has that really lethal sinker, throws it 37% of the time, slider at 30.5%, has a four-seam fastball he mixes in to really, kind of pair with that sinker, and then the changeup he throws at about 10% of the time. His slider increased significantly along with his four-seam fastball. His sinker dipped from 53% usage to 37.2% usage in 2022. And he was just electric, man. The guy was, every time he went out there, we were very, very confident he was going to do a great job. That slider gets ridiculous horizontal movement at 93% more than the average pitcher. So, one of the best sliders on this roster. It's absolutely electric. He's one of those guys we can consistently rely on. We missed him dearly in the postseason. So, Sam, when you're looking at his impact this year, do you think that we have to limit his usage pretty significantly? Because, they're not even sure if he's going to be ready for opening day. They do believe he will be. Currently, I think Brian Cashman, or rather, I think the quote was from Brendan Cuddy, King believes he's on track to be on track to, start Yankees opening day on the bullpen come March 30th. Blake didn't dismiss the idea either. General Manager Brian Cashman has said the club hopes King will be ready for Game 1. So, there's a lot of optimism going around, but do you think you have to mitigate kind of injury down the stretch here? How many innings do you think he can pitch coming off of this issue?
I do. I thought that him and a pitcher like Lucas Licky kind of came in last season with the same type of role. Low leverage situation, you're going to pitch 6th, 7th inning, get 2 innings out of you. And at that point, it was like you got Jonathan Loaisiga, who's going to fill that 8th inning spot, and then you got Clay Holmes as well. But I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to go by this closer by committee thing. If they end up having Michael King close some games, which he did last season, if they're going to have Loaisiga close some games, same thing with Holmes. So I think that in general, it's going to be those 3 guys at the back end of this bullpen that are probably just going to throw 1 inning a pop, and that in turn will translate to him throwing less innings. So yeah, I think that they're, and with the injury stuff as well, obviously this is a guy coming back, and we've seen some Yankees relievers over the past couple of seasons that have, gone too far and have gotten hurt. Like look at a guy like Zach Britton, who just could not stay healthy for the last 2 seasons as a Yankee, and that was just a complete failure of a contract. And, obviously he's not making Zach Britton type money, but this is still one of our better relievers. And, another thing with King is King got hurt directly as the second half started. We obviously went on that terrible tear in the second half, which was an insane collapse from how good they were in the first half. He had a first half ERA of 2.15, and in the second half he only threw 1 inning, and that was the game that he got hurt. So yet again, this injury bug that we had during the second half of the season, this also included Michael King, and I don't think anybody really talks about it, just because we really talk about the offensive pieces and some of the other pitchers that we had that got hurt. But that is just another contributor that you're going to have, hopefully for the full season, if you end up mitigating his innings, which I would assume that they would do, just because of the amount of talent that is now in this bullpen, and even adding in a guy like Tommy Kahnle, who can also fill his innings for you as well. So yeah, I think it would be in their best interest to, really kind of limit him, and I don't want him to come back and feel rushed back. Because like I said, there's enough pieces where I think we could survive with this bullpen and the amount of talent that's there. So I think that they should bring him back at a slow pace, and when he's ready, and then they'll ramp up his full workload. And I think he should be one of those 3 guys with, with Holmes and Loaisiga, who are really like the elite arms in that bullpen.
Loaisiga could be the difference maker for me this year. We talked about pretty heavily how great this bullpen is and how tremendous they project to be. Loaisiga's the catalyst for me. Michael King, love him. He's going to be awesome. I wish we had Scott Efros, but he's obviously going to miss the season due to Tommy John surgery himself. Jonathan Loaisiga, when healthy, is one of the best bullpen arms on the team, if not in the entire MLB, in my opinion. His top game, his elite stuff, when he's playing at the very top of his expectations and everything is going right, he is lights out. You cannot touch the guy. During the playoffs, he looked really, really good. I would love to see him maintain his health. That shoulder injury he had early in the year last year completely threw his season off, completely diminished all the hype that was surrounding him coming off a really, really great 2021. What are your thoughts on Loaisiga? Because right now, if there's anyone that I can visualize really elevating his game and becoming, like, barring injury, becoming that top dog that we rely on in the highest leverage moments, like maybe even more high leverage than Clay Holmes, I think Johnny Lowe could be that guy.
No, yeah, I 100% agree. He's probably my favorite arm in this bullpen. If you look at his stats from last season, that does not tell the full story, because he had a really bad first half of the year, and then obviously really came into his own, like you said, with the shoulder injury. So for me, I've been kind of campaigning slowly for Jonathan Loaisiga to be the closer. If he's on, I think he's 100% on, and he should be the closer for this team. With Clay Holmes, he kind of fell off in the second half after he was incredible during the first half. But I think that Clay Holmes, works well as like a setup guy as well. And we'll see what happens with Loaisiga. But I think that, like you said, you're 100% right. He could be the catalyst for this bullpen. And depending on, how everybody else is performing, I think he should be that guy, dude. I think he's that good.
He is absolutely that good. I mean, Johnny Lowe is one of the best players on this team, and, when healthy. Again, a lot of these players are always, it comes down to who's going to stay healthy, who's going to be the one to kind of last the full season. Like, we're looking at DJ LeMahieu, we're looking at Stanton, we're looking at Harrison Bader. If those three guys stay healthy the full year and don't miss significant chunks of time, this is a World Series caliber team. We lost healthy Stanton for the second half of the year. He was not healthy the entire rest of the way, in my opinion. DJ LeMahieu, of course we lost him. Johnny, we lost in the beginning of the year. Scott Efros, we lost at the end of the year. This team was at half capacity by the time we even took on the Houston Astros, and a lot of people forget that. DJ LeMahieu, not having him is significant. Not having a healthy Stanton. He was healthier down the stretch, but he still didn't have the consistency and continuity we needed him to have going into the postseason. Harrison Bader he was awesome during the postseason. He was probably our best player in the playoffs, and he didn't have barely any action beforehand. So I'd love to see these guys maintain their health. I'd love to see them kind of play a full season. Frankie Montas is going to be another one. Probably going to miss a couple weeks into the regular season. We need him to step up. The shoulder inflammation is scary. Sometimes it doesn't really go away to 100%. So I'm definitely a little bit concerned. But going full circle around to Michael King again, this is a guy who is, when healthy, another one that could be one of the best bullpen arms in the game. Him and Jonathan Loaisiga could be neck and neck. Like, who do you pick your poison? Whoever you want to be that guy in high leverage situations, roll the dice. They're both going to get the job done. And ultimately, King has that. I think King's upside is even more than Jonathan Loaisiga because of how great he looked last year, because of what he put on display. And him coming back to full health, him avoiding Tommy John surgery is a really good thing, because if you talk to any doctor, I've had multiple high ankle sprains, multiple ligament pulls. Ligament damage is always worse than bone damage. You never want to have those ligament issues. So Tommy John surgery, a lot of pitchers are coming back to full strength these days. You look at Justin Verlander, a lot of these guys are getting back to where they were, but bone breaks usually are easier to recover from than significant ligament and damage to that UCL. So ultimately, I think Michael King returns to 100%. I think he's good to go on opening day, and I think there is going to be some sort of limitation on how they utilize him, especially as the season gets more, kind of into, the steak and potatoes and everything. It's going to be really high leverage. They got to make sure he's ready for that. That's where it all comes down to. So I'm going to ask you this. What we saw last year was everything come crumbling down when it mattered most. How do you think the Yankees go about this upcoming year, making sure that they maintain the health of their most important players for the second half of the season? Yes, the first half is important because you're making that strong push. You're making that, really big leap to try and put yourself in a spot to make the postseason and have some, cushion. But the Yankees lost so many players down the stretch because they overused them kind of in the first half to maintain that pace. How do you think they kind of go about mitigating that moving forward? Because they need to make sure these guys are healthy, and workload management, unfortunately, is going to be the name of the game for this Yankee team this upcoming season.
Yeah, I think this is a deeper roster than we saw last year. You now see players like, an Oswald Peraza and an Oswaldo Cabrera who are going to come into this fold and end up rotating with guys like DJ LeMahieu or can DH for a guy like Giancarlo Stanton on any given day. And we're not really sure what's going to go on in left field, but again, we could see Aaron Hicks float in every fifth day and play left field. So I just think that this is a way deeper roster, and especially with the bullpen as well, like I mentioned, adding a guy like Tommy Kahnle and really getting everybody healthy and up to speed. There's a guy like Greg Weissert is going to play a big role in this bullpen this year and, be able to throw those garbage time bullpen innings away for you guys. So it's going to be nice. So I just think that in general, this is just a deeper roster that's going to be, able to rotate. And I don't expect this team to go out and win, 64 first half games like they did last season. So I think that was another thing that kind of played into it, is that, they were on this historic pace for 120 wins and they felt that they needed to play their guys every single day. But I still think that this is their division to win. But at the same time, I think that they're deeper now and they're healthier. And I think that they should be able to mitigate those innings, by rotating in these younger guys and, the real depth pieces that they have. So I think that's the biggest thing for the Yankees this year, is really just staying healthy and getting to the finish line, because, it's been a consistent thing over the past 3 to 4 seasons where we're missing one guy or we're missing a couple guys that really could be key contributors. DJ LeMahieu is really the main suspect there because we've, played him every day for the past 3 years and he's been hurt every single postseason run. And that's, probably the most important bat that we have in our lineup. And, circling back to King, I think he's probably, like I said, he's a top 3 most important arm in that bullpen right now. And, really limiting those innings this year and really only throwing them when we need to be is going to be key. So I think that their biggest thing this year is just going to have to be health, because they just need their guys to be ready to go.
Absolutely. I would be willing to sacrifice just the ridiculous momentum of the first half of the year so that we can finish the year healthy and have a better shot at winning these games.
100%.
You know what I mean? 100% down to like you said, they were chasing that record. They were chasing that historical record. They were never going to get there. You know what I mean? They were just overusing their most prominent pieces. And look, I understand like you want to run your best guys out there every day, but I think we learned a valuable lesson last season that sometimes you have to roll with the supplementary pieces to keep those guys healthy for the playoffs, because ultimately Yankees are a playoff team every single year. They can win. If we had a tough start but a strong finish, I'd rather go into the postseason healthy and with momentum than go into the postseason with no momentum and barely healthy. So that's kind of what I've learned. Finish strong. You can start strong, but you got to make sure that you're very careful. So those youngsters this year, by the way, we're talking about the Volpes of the world, Peraza, the Cabreras, maybe we can see like Andres Chaparro, maybe we see, Austin Wells down the stretch. There are young guys who need to get opportunities. Johnny Brito in the bullpen, he's another young guy who's looked really good as workhorse type of, workload. They really like him as a supplemental starter or a bullpen piece. There are young guys who need to elevate their game and make significant impacts to help the veterans stay healthy, because that's the name of the game. It's going to be this upcoming season. It has been every season, but we just have not figured out the right strategy to keep everybody healthy. But guys, I'd love to hear your perspective below in the YouTube comments about this discussion. Michael King, how to keep everybody healthy. I think it's a worthwhile one. I'd love to hear your perspectives as always. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Yankees episode.